Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, LeBron's pretty good.
All right, 6 o'clock. Welcome, good evening. I will now call to order our regularly scheduled Apex Town Council meeting for Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. And I would like to thank those who joined us on live stream and remind those who are here tonight, make sure you sign up on the appropriate sheet for the public hearing or public forum if you plan to speak tonight. I'll start the meeting with an invocation. I want to read a statement first. The Town of Apex values and celebrates diversity and inclusion. We see diversity as a strength that binds our community together. Inviting members from different faith communities to deliver an invocation at the beginning of our council meetings supports this unity. Recognizing that not everyone practices the same traditions, we welcome you to have a private moment of silence during this time. And if you would, join me in a word of prayer. Bow your heads, please. Father, we thank you for this time together. I thank you for my council colleagues that you have placed here for an assignment, and continue to unify us and help us to recognize, Lord, even in our differences, Lord, we're stronger. May we also, Lord, continue to be and illuminate hope and joy and peace to the rest of our community members. Where there's pain, Lord, give our community members joy. And where there's anxiety and worry and doubt, replace that, Lord, with the peace that only you can give. And Lord, may we continue to be an illumination for the rest of the county, state, and the country to model what you have called us to do. In your Son's name we pray, amen. If you would join me for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and get started with first on our meeting agenda, presentations. And we'll start the first one off with an update. Actually, no, Town of Apex Affordable Housing Plan by Shannon Cox, Long-Range Planning Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm joined by Sarah Kirk via Teams, our project manager with HR&A, and we will be providing an update on the progress to develop the Town of Apex Affordable Housing Plan. So Sarah, if you wouldn't mind sharing the presentation.
Absolutely.
So I'll be going through the first few slides and then I'll turn it over to Sarah. So we can go ahead. So tonight we will provide a brief reminder of our planning process. We are going to review the draft vision and goals established by the steering committee for the Affordable Housing Plan. Then Sarah will walk through the 14 recommendations to address those goals. And finally, we'll wrap up with next steps in plan development. Next slide. So as a reminder, the planning process is about 8 months. We kicked off in May, and the first order of business was a housing needs assessment. So that included the public survey, stakeholder interviews, and data analysis. And that housing needs assessment is what we presented to you back in September. So since that time, the consultant, staff, and steering committee have been working on recommendations to address the needs that were identified. We have also been working on drafting the Affordable Housing Plan and have gone through a round of review with our steering committee. We will present the recommendations this evening. We will be presenting the full plan to the public on December 17th. And then anticipate public hearings for potential adoption in January. Next slide. So following our previous update, the steering committee met in a facilitated session and used all of the public input and housing needs to develop a plan, vision, and goal. And so that's what you're seeing on the screen now. The draft vision is that the town, Apex welcomes people of diverse backgrounds and supports opportunities for affordable, safe, sanitary, and quality housing that meets the needs of people of all incomes, ages, and abilities. And the statements beneath that are the goal statements. So to accomplish this vision, Apex will welcome, attract, and retain a diverse population, meet the housing needs of a diverse population, including providing housing that is affordable to people with moderate and low incomes, connect affordable housing development with transit service, transportation infrastructure, and amenities, partner regionally to meet the needs of vulnerable populations, and raise community awareness of affordable housing needs, solutions, and broader impacts. So this is what you will see in the draft plan, and we will be gathering additional public input on this vision and goal statements. And with that, I will turn it over to Sarah to walk through each of the recommendations.
Great, thanks so much, Shannon. What you're seeing in front of you is part one. There's a part two on the next page, but really there are three types of actions that we've recommended to help to address those goals that Shannon just laid out. The first is around the town's capacity. In order to ensure the successful implementation of the plan, Apex needs to build its capacity to oversee and implement new housing programs. The second, and this was something that we heard repeatedly from the steering committee, from public engagement, and throughout the planning process, was to advance advocacy and public education to build awareness and understanding about affordable housing in Apex among Apex residents, and also to publicize actions that the town is taking to address its affordable housing needs. The third area of actions that we're recommending is to implement specific programs and policies that will help to meet its affordable housing goals and address the affordable housing needs that we identified. So there's a number of programs and policies we provide recommendations for. Generally, they support increasing the availability of affordable rental units, as well as market rate units, and increasing support for homeownership, as well as providing supportive services to residents with either particular needs or more vulnerable. And as you can see in this table, we've identified how each of these recommendations aligns with those 5 goals. You can see we have made sure that we have recommendations that address opportunities to partner regionally, to raise the awareness of the public about the needs for affordable housing, and to meet the needs of the population and make sure that we're welcoming, attracting, and retaining a diverse population by providing adequate housing. So I'm going to go through the recommendations in a little bit more detail, and then we have some time at the end for discussion. So as I said, the first couple of recommendations are about increasing the town's capacity. We have recommended in consultation with the steering committee and town staff to add a housing manager in order to make sure that the town actually has the capacity to administer many of the recommendations that are made in this plan. That would live within the Planning and Community Development Department, but we think it's important to have dedicated staff to oversee housing. The second capacity-related recommendation is to establish a housing advisory board. Apex has a committed base of housing advocates and professionals. They can advise town council on housing priorities, on annual funding allocations, but also to serve that crucial role of communicating with the public about affordable housing. So we've recommended forming a housing advisory board with 8 to 10 council-appointed members that represent a diversity of groups, including real estate professionals, affordable housing providers, regional representatives, and at-large community members, which may include residents of affordable housing. The second area of recommendations that we made is around advancing advocacy and public education. The first of these is an annual housing report. We think that there's a great opportunity for the town to develop a report and a dashboard of metrics that it can use to track and report metrics associated with affordable housing needs, with the town's programs, the expenditures that it makes, and that this is a really crucial opportunity for the town in partnership with the Housing Advisory Board to, again, communicate with residents about the importance of affordable housing, about what the town is doing to meet the affordable housing needs that have been identified, and what the impacts of the town's programs have been. The second outreach and education and advocacy recommendation is around diversity and racial equity. This is really two recommendations that we're putting together. The first is around diversity. One of the key findings that came out of the needs assessment was understanding that even though Wake County is growing in a way that is relatively diverse, Apex is not capturing a diverse population of new residents. And so we wanted to talk about ways to make sure that the town is able, the beginning of the meeting, you opened with a statement about commitment to diverse residents, and that's great, but I think this recommendation is really about making sure that that commitment is consistently made and reinforced throughout the town's communications, as well as through things like how the town is advertising and marketing itself to potential residents. So that's the diversity piece. The racial equity piece is about making sure that the town is setting clear racial equity goals for new housing programs with the intention of reducing disparities in the way that the town supports affordable housing and makes it available to residents. And there's a number of more detailed recommendations that are outlined in the full plan for each of these. Just trying to cover the core pieces of the recommendations and how those would work in Apex. And finally, in public engagement and advocacy, we talk about opportunities for the town to partner with community groups that already exist within the town, within the county, to support advocacy efforts. So this would include developing an advocacy and education plan, as well as public-facing informational materials that can explain not only the town's affordable housing plan, but its programs and other activities, and integrating these advocacy efforts into the annual housing report. So this might include things like tours of affordable housing developments, producing fact sheets to explain proposed programs, and highlighting stories about people accessing affordable housing and affordable housing programming in marketing efforts, local media, things like that. The final section of recommendations is implementing programs and policies, and this is understandably the most diverse group of recommendations and the longest group of recommendations, because it really talks about how the different ways in which Apex can change its land use policies and provide subsidy to support affordable housing for its residents. The first and really the most crucial, something that we've heard a need for and an interest in consistently throughout the planning process, is to create an affordable housing incentive zoning condition. So this would be a condition that specifies target affordability for new development and provides incentives such as density bonuses, reduced parking requirements, other things like that as an incentive to developers who provide affordable housing that meets specific goals. The key thing here really is to ensure that the program design is done in a way that provides adequate incentives to really encourage developers to take advantage of that incentive. So the incentive offered by the town needs to provide enough revenue to offset the lost revenue from providing either a payment in lieu or rent or price reduction of housing. The second one, and this is something I know that the town has already been talking about, is to provide assistance for owner-occupied rehabilitation. So the town's already got a program, Apex Cares, that's currently has been proposed, and we think that's really great. There's some opportunities for the town to align that program with existing rehab programs in Wake County, and really just make sure that the town is able to conduct outreach to potential participants to make sure that homeowners who need assistance are able to make those necessary repairs to their housing. Low-income housing tax credits are one of the biggest programs to provide new affordable rental housing in the country. Apex currently has a disproportionately low share of the low-income housing tax credit developments in Wake County. And that's for a number of reasons, including the fact that it can be difficult to find suitable sites for development of low-income housing tax credit housing in Apex. But we think there's a really big and significant opportunity to provide gap funding for LIHTC developments, particularly in partnership with Wake County. Wake County has an affordable housing loan program to provide development funds for LIHTC developments, and this is really about making sure that Apex is able to capture, leverage, take advantage of that county program, and make sure that it can offset some of those additional land costs that can be a barrier potentially to developers interested in developing in Apex. So this recommendation is really about working with Wake County to identify potential projects and coordinate funding agreements jointly with the county in order to make sure that it is feasible to develop tax credit housing in Apex. On the one side, we talked about rental affordability. We also wanted to make sure we heard very clearly that homeownership affordability was really important. We have proposed and recommended a down payment assistance program that also pairs homeownership counseling. This recommendation would be primarily about identifying a nonprofit partner or potentially implementing the program through the town directly to provide down payment assistance to help households who can afford the cost of homeownership but don't have that cash up front to access homeownership to buy a home. Now, this is a challenge we've seen, and we showed in our summary of the needs assessment that the entry price point for homes in Apex is high and rising, particularly compared with the county. So this is a very important tool, but it's going to have the most impact when it's paired with other tools that can increase the supply of moderately priced housing, such as that incentive zoning condition, such as in some of the other recommendations that we're going to talk about. We talked a lot about potential land use changes, and one of the big ones that we ended up recommending based on conversations with the town, conversations with the steering committee, was for density around transit-oriented development opportunities. This is really about encouraging the development of multifamily housing near employment centers and near transit. Apex has some planned transit improvements coming, and that provides a really great opportunity to leverage that to make sure that low-income households are able to access employment, able to access transit. The key recommendation here is about revising the town's future land use map to show higher residential density in transit-adjacent areas. The reason for that recommendation is so that you're able to continue to leverage that incentive zoning condition to hopefully provide affordable units as well as market rate units through that added density. We knew we needed to talk about public land. One of the things that we heard early on was that the town doesn't have a lot of available land to support affordable housing development, but we heard that it was very important that the town first develop an acquisition and disposition policy that ensures that it does identify suitable sites for affordable housing and designate them as it either evaluates potential opportunities for the sale of public land or potentially acquires new land that a portion of it might be for a particular use and another portion of it might be appropriate for housing. Again, this is an area for potential partnership with the county, identifying county-owned sites that might be suitable for affordable housing, and then using an RFP process to identify developers who will build affordable housing on that property. We made recommendations about accessory apartments. We know that accessory apartments are already allowed in the town of Apex. So we've talked about opportunities to work with homeowners, with homeownership associations, and with developers to reduce the barriers to building accessory apartments and encourage more homeowners to develop accessory apartments. One of the key ways that we talked about doing this was to create a menu of designs that are Apex appropriate based on local building code, local character, and providing those to residents who are interested in building an accessory apartment. That would be a significant way to reduce the upfront costs of a homeowner who's interested in building an accessory apartment. We've also talked about piloting a program to develop affordable accessory apartments by offering low-cost loans to help with the construction costs in exchange for making those units affordable to low-income or income-qualified renters. We know that supportive services is really important in Apex, and there are already a number of groups providing supportive services in town. The key recommendation here is to provide grant funding to nonprofits serving vulnerable populations in Apex, and really to let that be driven by a competitive process. Supportive services can mean a broad range of things, so this is about working with nonprofit partners to monitor and understand what needs are unmet, and based on that demonstrated need, awarding funding to programs that will meet that need. And I believe this is the last one. We've talked about another land use change that we're calling it soft density or sort of missing middle housing. The recommendation here, I think this is something that we talked about previously, but the recommendation here is to amend zoning to allow soft density development or more types of development in areas that are suitable for increased density. This is really focused on neighborhoods in and around the town center. We know that there's that the town character overlay designation, and we think that that's a really great opportunity to provide more units, smaller units, again, potentially more homeownership opportunities for moderate income households near the town center through that town character overlay. That's the end of the list of recommendations. I'm going to go back up to the full list and happy to open it up for discussion. If there are questions, or Shannon, I don't know if you want to talk through next steps and then we can open it up for discussion from there.
I think it might be helpful to go through the next steps first. If we could go back to that. Just want to give you a sense of where we're headed so that you understand the additional opportunities for input before we get to the questions and discussion. So we are working on plans for a virtual public presentation of the draft plan, which will be held on December 17th at 6:00 p.m. We'll be posting the complete draft plan anticipated this Friday. And there will also be a comment form so that people can view the recorded presentation if they're not available that evening, provide their comments either during the presentation or following, and we'll have opportunities for people who don't have internet to view it here as well. Following the draft plan presentation, we will be revising the plan, and then the steering committee will be meeting on January 7th. We'll be asking for a recommendation regarding plan adoption. The public hearing with the planning board is planned for January 11th, and then with town council at your January 26th meeting. And at this point, I think we're ready for any questions.
Could you just remind us, and for maybe those who are tuning in, and for some that this might be new to, can you remind us about who was on the steering committee, how big it was, and who some of the stakeholders were that were in this decision? Because at first I think it's wonderful, and thank you for being so comprehensive with the recommendations. But could you share a little background about the steering committee? Because I understand it was some really well-rounded group from what I understand.
Absolutely. We've had an amazing steering committee. They've truly been engaged, especially with the difficult process of meeting virtually through this whole process. We have had members of the public, citizen representation, affordable housing advocates, nonprofit representatives, multifamily developers, single-family developers, a planning board member, 2 members of the town council and the mayor. Who am I forgetting? I think
The youth.
youth, thank you very much. I think that kind of captures,
The
A good
directly
cross-section.
impacted person.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
Can you speak to how this plan expanded upon or utilized the county's plan that came out a couple of years ago?
Yes, so one of our steering committee members is with Wake County. I did not mention Town of Cary, and as well as Wake County were on the steering committee. And they have been involved in reviewing all of our recommendations, providing input on which programs may complement what the county is doing, and where there may be gaps that the town could fill in. So we've had direct input from Wake County, and then HRNA, our consultant, also worked on the Wake County plan and was able to use that background information as part of this process.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think throughout, we've also tried to identify places where the county is already advancing some of these things where the town might be able to partner, particularly on the gap financing for tax credit housing. That was a big one.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Shannon. You've done an amazing job, and we're in the red zone, so take us into the end zone, all right? Get started. We're gonna get there. All right, so we'll move on now to, actually, we're going to move presentation 2 to the end of the agenda, and we'll now move to our consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. If we're okay with the consent agenda, can I have a motion? And please give your last name. I'm giving a motion second.
I'll make a motion to approve Killingsworth.
I
Second.
second it, Stallings.
All right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes. We now move to setting of the regular meeting agenda. There are no changes with the regular meeting agenda. If I could have a motion to set the regular meeting agenda as presented.
So
Motion.
moved.
Sorry. Second, Gant.
Dozier.
Okay? All right, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we have a set agenda. We now move to our public forum. This is opportunity for you to speak out and present any items of concern. You have a total of 3 minutes. Please monitor the lights. Series of lights starts with green, moves to yellow, and at red, you need to be closing out your presentation. Thank you. Any recorded? No. Okay. All right, I'd like to call out Tommy Wilkinson. Williamson, trying to read your writing. Thank you.
Yep, Williamson, you're right. Good evening, Mayor Dozier, excuse me, put you up here, wrong minute. Mayor Gilbert, Pro Tem Dozier, and members of the council. Life is filled with a vast array of risks, and each of us as individuals need to identify and quantify those risks. And then based on our individual circumstances, we take what we believe are reasonable steps to mitigate those risks. So know your risk and then take steps to mitigate those risks. And this is done every day by individuals, families, communities, businesses, and governments. The facts on the North Carolina DHHS website for COVID shows that for Apex Rec basketball participants, the risk of death while being COVID positive is virtually non-existent. For instance, ages 0 through 4, no deaths. Ages 10 to 17, 0 deaths. Ages 5 through 9, only 1 death, and that occurred prior to May 15th of this year. Now, I've been a spectator, a parent of a player, and a coach in the Apex Rec program for the last 15 years. And I'd say pretty comfortably all the coaches are at least 95% plus or under 50. I don't qualify for that now, though. The COVID dashboard says age groups 25 to 49 represent a total of 4% of deaths. So in total, 96% of all the deaths that we've experienced in North Carolina have been to people over age 50, not the players and coaches of the Apex Rec basketball program. And just this past weekend, Dr. Anthony Fauci stated on TV that, quote, "If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really big at all," end quote. For people that have assessed their risk and playing Apex Rec basketball keeps them within that acceptable risk, then they should have that opportunity to play. If, however, people playing Apex Rec basketball determine that it's not within their risk and it's not acceptable, they should not participate. It's that simple. And we'll say it's curious to note that after considering the effect of extremely close contact in athletic competition, the state of North Carolina has not objected and has taken no action to shut down the game of football, which is being played by colleges and professional teams in this state. Those football players are older and at higher risk of death compared to the players in Apex basketball. Know your risk and take steps to mitigate your risk. Now, leadership sometimes is a lonely place, and it leads you to take action that may not be agreed upon by all. So tonight, I respectfully ask that this commission to consider the facts I presented, be flexible and adjustable, just like the Masters Golf Tournament had to be this year. Reverse the current status and reopen the winter basketball program. Our children are ready and anxious to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson, for coming out tonight to speak. All right, we now move to unfinished business and call it Jenna Schaus, long-range planner for Town of Apex. I'm going to talk about our Apex Wayfinding Signage Program.
Good evening, excuse me. So this evening I'll be providing an update on the Town of Apex Wayfinding Signage Program. So here's an overview of what I'll be discussing. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, you can. Okay. So the purpose of the Wayfinding program is to provide attractive and consistent information to help all modes as they navigate to key destinations in town. And the town has partnered with Merge as the consultant on this project. And currently, we've completed the wayfinding analysis and the orientation map. And right now, we're working on the programming and the design development, so looking at exactly what the signs will look like and where they'll be and what they'll say. And today, I'm going to present 3 specific items and ask for input and guidance from Town Council. The first is a follow-up on the sign design, because we've received some more public input, so we'd like to get guidance from Town Council on whether we should use a scalloped or a flat edge on one of the signs. The next is the kiosk display type. So looking at digital versus static kiosks and get guidance from Town Council on that item as well. And then finally, the gateway options. So we have 3 gateway options that I'd like to present to you all today and get your feedback. And then I'll go through next steps in the process. So the first item is the sign design, as I mentioned. So during the August 18th meeting, Town Council recommended that we seek additional public input on the sign designs. So we've done that, so I just want to briefly describe the strategy that we took, or the approach that we took to gather more input. So we created a town webpage and asked for people to provide comments to me on the wayfinding sign designs, and also provided some comment boxes at key locations around town for written comments, but we did not actually receive any written comments. All of the ones were submitted to me via email. And then we sent an email to everyone who was signed up to be on the long-range planning email distribution list, and also leveraged our social media and then posted flyers at key locations in town. And the public input period was open for just over a month, so from mid-September to mid-October. So here's a brief summary of the public input results. So 25 individuals submitted comments via email. And most of the people who emailed me indicated that they responded positively to the sign design. And then I didn't receive a ton of comments, but I put some of the ones here that I received. And the number in parentheses after each of the bullets is the number of times that I received that comment. So the first is to provide double-sided directional signs where possible. And we're looking to do that where we can. It's most feasible for the parking signs and then pedestrian directional signs. And the next note is concern about sign pollution. And that's something that we definitely want to keep in mind throughout this process. So we don't want to have redundant signs or any unnecessary signs in town. And then the third is the item that I'd like input from you all on today. And that's whether we want to use the scalloped edge on the bottom of this sign or have all of them with the flat edge. So I'll kind of describe that a little bit more. So the scallop is on the low-speed vehicular directional sign just in downtown, and it was designed to represent the awnings in downtown. But we received some comments that it would be better to have it all consistent. So I'd like to open it up to you all to see if you all have any thoughts on that.
I definitely like the flat
The flat
versus
edge.
the scalloped, yes.
Okay.
My preference.
Yeah, I was neutral when you said that in the previous meeting, but I didn't realize it was related to the awnings, and that kind of actually moved me toward favoring the scallop because it kind of differentiates downtown from the other places.
I actually did like the scalloping because I like the shows a different location as well.
What's the likelihood that the scallops will change on the awnings in downtown?
I guess they could at any
Do we have
time.
any speculation on that?
You mean like a change in the awning design that they might do?
Yeah.
I guess some of them have the flat edge and some are curled.
My experience is most of the time they change them out to a new sign, but not necessarily a different design of the awning. But I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have lived here longer, especially you, Mayor.
Yeah, I haven't really paid attention.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
No, actually, I was going to speak on the scallop signs because that design, now when I think of Apex, I mean, I think we should do things that is unique and not just the standard. So I really like that design. It stands out more.
Meaning you like the scallop design?
I think you're going
Any more
down this
thoughts?
time, Audrey.
I just like consistency with signs, and
No, I
when it's not consistent, then, you know, that's what bothers me about it, so.
I see what you mean.
Do you want to vote on all these, or are we just kind of
Well,
discussing?
I want to make it even more complicated.
Uh-oh. Scallop at the top, straight at the bottom.
When we get down to the further parts where you've got the, I think it's the third option that you're going to ask us input on, those taller signs actually have curvature on the top and bottom.
Oh, and the gateways,
Yes.
we can look at
And I
those.
was curious, did you all consider a curvature at the bottom versus straight? I mean, I know the scallops sort of integrate some curvature, but I was just curious. Like I said, I just want
Looking
to
at-
ask that question.
Like this, for like the gateway one,
Yes.
like looking at. I'm trying,
Because I like the curvature because it plays into the curvature of our new brand, and, you know, you've got curvature in lots of things, and I like that. And I was just curious, was there any discussion about that?
I remember we had like 4 sign design options in the beginning, and one of them had the like curved at the top and the bottom. And then we went with the one with the flat on the bottom based on the input, and then kept the curve at the top. And yeah, that
So it was based on input then?
Yeah.
To keep it, okay. All right. I'm really indifferent. I mean, I think either one will look fine. I don't have strong opinions either way.
Okay. So it sounds like keep the scallop overall. Okay.
So, you good with that?
I mean, I'm not going to cry over it or anything, but, you know, like I said, I just like consistency, and so, but, yeah, I'm okay.
Thank you.
And I guess my only comment is consistency. Well, if we go with the number one choice of the third part of this presentation, then it would not be consistent. One's going to be flat and one's going to be curved.
Right.
But
For the gateways?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's just an observation. I think you all have done a wonderful job, and it looks very nice. Yeah.
It is hard. And to go by what the people wanted mostly, to go by, yeah, so, because I like some of the other ones too, but.
Great, thank you. So the next item that I'd like your guidance on as well is the kiosk display type. So in the preliminary programming recommendations, there are 10 kiosks that are recommended, and one of those is a digital kiosk, and that one would be at the depot. And here are some considerations for the static versus digital kiosks. So the static does cost substantially less, approximately $8,000 to fabricate and install, and less maintenance is required since there aren't electronic components. And the style of the actual kiosk can be designed with a depth to hold a digital screen in case we want to go in after the fact and add that LCD screen. And then the digital kiosk does cost more. It's $50,000 to fabricate and install, or that's the approximate cost. And then there is more maintenance, but allows you to share more content, and there's more flexibility with that digital option. So from you all, I'd like to hear your thoughts on static versus digital in terms of, do you think just having the one at the depot is good as digital, or if you think we need more, or if no digital you think are needed? Just so we know, moving forward programming wise, and what to include in the budget for this project.
I can start. When I look at the price difference, it's significant. I think the fact that you can use the static and it could be designed to hold a digital screen later. And then I look at the digital also, it costs more, it's more maintenance, so who's going to do that? Is that a position? Is that added to someone's shop? So it just seems like it's more than $50,000. And while it shares more content and more flexibility, we don't have anything now, so I feel like static would be okay. But I do love the digital stuff, but just, I don't know, that's how I think about it, related to the dollars in this.
Are you saying do all of them static? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, no, I haven't thought about that, but just when I'm taking at the one or over the other, I'm picking static, but I'm willing to listen to what folks think about how many. But if we were just doing one at the depot, which was the first question, then I would say one is static. If we do more, then we might just go with one digital. So.
I have a question. So the price tag for the 50,000, is that if they're all digital?
Is there each for one?
Each.
So each digital is $50,000.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, if you did one, you could do one that's digital, but if you do too many static, you might as well do one that's digital.
Okay.
Static, yeah. I mean, if we can upgrade it some other time, if somebody else decides that needs to happen, then that's fine, but in my opinion, static is where we need to go. I think we need to focus our money on other things within the downtown plan.
Okay, are you saying all static then?
Yes.
Okay, 11 static.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
What are your thoughts, Councilman?
Well, let me ask you, is the digital, is it digital, does that mean interactive? Like the fingers can swipe and zoom in and stuff? Okay. I actually like the 10-in-1 idea. I think the depot is obviously one of the most trafficked areas in town, and I think we'll get a lot more people looking at it when it's digital and interactive. And I think it's more expensive obviously, but I think it will be well worth it in terms of extra interaction if we go digital at the depot. So I thought that recommendation was appropriate. Just start with that, and if you said they can be switched out if need be, or if there's a demand for them.
Yeah, then you can add the digital screen to one that's currently static.
Yeah, I think people will use that a lot. The digital one and the static one they'll look at, but I mean, only moderately I think is in comparison. So my preference is the recommendation there.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what the maintenance cost would be of the digital?
I don't know. That's something I can, or I reach out to our consultants and they're investigating this for another community similar to ours. So I think as they move forward with that, they can also apply it to ours if we want to use the digital. But I can ask if they have any dollar amounts right now that they think maintenance would cost.
that would be helpful. Thank you.
I just have a question on like the content of the static. Like if something changes downtown, locations change, how do you?
That's what we had talked, because we have an orientation map, you can't really see it here, of downtown, and then there's a separate business directory on the bottom that you could change that panel out, and we were talking about just doing that annually.
And also, is there an opportunity, I mean, when you look at digital versus static, is there a application on a smartphone that we can use to kind of have the public to use that as well?
That's what one of the stakeholders recommended, and we're gonna incorporate, it might not be exactly what you're thinking about, but having like a QR code on the orientation map, so you could scan it, and then if you walk away, you can still look at that map.
And that could be on the static
Right.
display.
So, I'm going back to,
I love the digital idea, I'm just concerned about the cost right
Me
now.
too.
That's my biggest concern.
I'm concerned that the maintenance of this might be more than we expect, especially if it becomes damaged or, something like that.
You know, my thought about that is that these kind of things, digital and touch screens, they've gotten a lot better in the last, I would say, 10 years. I'm not saying there won't be issues with it and maintenance with it, but the new ones I see of like this seem to be, at least when I walk by, I don't see a lot of broken ones
I've seen enough.
around.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few broken ones. That's why it brings it to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, we're going to have staff right in front of it, though, so in that building, so at least we'll be nearby and notice these things when they need to get fixed.
okay, so is there a consensus on the static? Like all static? Starting with that.
One more question, actually, too, is are you planning to put all 10 or 11, are those going to be deployed at once, or is it going to be, is the plan to do that over several years?
We have downtown phased into a couple years,
Okay,
so it would be done in the first 2 years, and then we're done with downtown.
okay, so, okay.
I really like the idea of the QR code. If you could,
QR code, yeah.
if you can tie it into it. People are all on their mobile phones, so yeah, good way you got them.
Yeah, I mean, my preference is static, and then later if we want to add digital, then go that way, but that's my opinion right now.
Yeah, that's where I like to go. I like to think about some of the other needs that we have, and we want people to be able to get around to our businesses or other things that are there or things that are going on. I think some of the money of that 50,000 could be spent on more immediate needs for that people want and need at this time. So I'm kind of looking at this through a COVID-19 lens and seeing how we can deal with more immediate needs right now, and then make things as up to date as possible, like you mentioned, the QR code and things like that. That's kind of what I would prefer to do at this time.
So is the consensus kind of for now static, and then look at digital in the future? Is that the?
Councilman, you started.
Well, I prefer, I think the extra utility of the digital makes it worth it, so, I mean, I can live with anything, but, yeah, that's my preference.
I think I would prefer static right now as well, just for the cost reasons. All static at this point.
Okay.
And reevaluate it later. And I'd also like to get information,
On the
if you would follow up about the maintenance for the digital. I
Yes.
think that would be good to have for future, maybe decisions and discussions. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So the next topic are the gateway options. So the purpose of the gateway signs is to mark the town limits and then to welcome visitors into town. And we presented 4 gateway options to the staff advisory committee and the stakeholder groups. And overall, they indicated a preference for option number 1. And then those options have been updated based on the input received. And so now it's down to 3 options. We combined 2 of them into 1. And then similar to how we did for the sign designs, we're planning to release this for a 30-day public comment period starting in December. And then as I go through, I'll quickly go through the 3 and then welcome any input from town council. So gateway option number 1, the one that most people have preferred at this point. Or I guess before I get into the 3, I'll point out what they all have in common. So they all have the larger, more prominent, like primary gateway, and then 3 smaller secondary gateways, so we can look at what makes sense at each location. And then the smaller tertiary gateway, really just a post and panel indicating that you've entered the town. And they all also incorporate our tagline, the peak of good living. So this one really emphasizes the new logo and has a large brick base and has this arch here. And this is based on input we received during that meeting. And then the next one is the most modern of the 3, and it also uses the logo and has like blue as the prominent color. And then these 3 shades of gray on the back were designed to reflect what's proposed for the back of the vehicular directional signs, where it would have the 3 shades of gray to keep it from just being blank on the back. And then the third one also has a brick base, but it's a little more simple and really emphasizes the apex on the top and uses the logo, but it's smaller than it is on the other 2. So I can go to any of them if you want to take a closer look on the big screen, but I'd welcome any input on these as we move forward with the designs.
Can I ask you, before we talk about the individual designs, where's the committee thinking about putting each of these kind of levels of gateways?
They're at like different places. I'd say we have the most like secondary and tertiary, and probably only like 2 to 3 of the primary, and we're working with DOT to figure out where exactly it would be permitted. But the larger ones it's more likely that they would be allowed on roads where we don't have interchanges. So places like North Salem Street or 55 before US 1 or around US 1. And then we have this one is a new design with the breakaway post, because that's what's allowable by NCDOT. So we created a new secondary. So, and then like smaller, or like looking at like traffic wise, the tertiary gateways will be put in locations where we don't have as many people entering town there. So it's kind of a mix of all 3, and we're still working on exactly which one would be placed where, but it's really what's allowable and where we have right of way.
Okay.
And for some, we would likely need to require easements, especially for the larger signs.
Okay.
And it looks like most people preferred 1, option 1.
Yes.
I think I prefer option 1 as well.
Okay.
Me too, by far, in my opinion.
What I like about option 1, the other one also, I guess is 3, is that it has the A that's like the other signs at the top.
On option 1? Sorry,
Option 1 and 3 of the smaller signs have the A at the top.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. So I like number 1 better.
I also like that it doesn't have yellow on it.
Okay.
I don't know why. To me, it's just harsh when you're talking about the signs. I like the green. It's a softer,
Yellow
easier
is
look.
happy, Councilwoman.
It can be. It can also be jarring.
Tell that all the Apex High people in the audience.
Yeah, I like the black. I like to me, it looks more historic, like the one on the top center. That it has that wrought iron type look to it. So I really like that. But in general, I love the option 1 design.
And so do I. I like it, like number 1 as well.
I do like while it's very traditional, but it's also has the asymmetric with the monument one with the brick. So I like that too.
Yeah.
I like number 1 for sure.
Awesome.
Definitely option 1.
I think everyone said 1. Is that right? Okay. Great. Okay, so just some next steps in the process. So next we're going to release these 3 gateway options for that 30-day public comment period, and then update the gateways based on any input that we receive. And then we're working on completing the sign menu and then submitting that to NCDOT for review. And then we're updating the programming. So again, looking at exactly where each sign goes and what it says. And then once we complete those 2 stages, we'll enter the documentation phase, looking at the technical aspects of every sign. So thank you all for your input. This was super helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation. Thank you so much. All right, we now move to public hearing number 1. Presenting tonight is Joanna Helms, Economic Development Director.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I will be presenting in lieu of Joanna tonight. She is out.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Make sure that you can see this.
Yes.
All right. So yes, Mayor, in public hearing 1, that this relates to the Cash Corporate Center. And this is for the purchase of roughly 10 acres of the Cash Corporate Center. It's located at 2100 Production Drive. This would be for $595,560 for the purchase of economic development. And the associated budget ordinance amendment with number 9 would allocate the funds from the general fund balance for this purchase. And just as a quick refresher, hopefully you can see my mouse. So this is the Cash Corporate Center site, Pinnacle Park. There's US 1, 55, and then our water plant. And then the yellow that just came onto your screen, sorry, Ms. Killingsworth, I didn't mean for the yellow and the orange.
That's only odd, that's only Killingsworth's opinion.
That is the 10-acre, that is roughly the 10-acre site that this project is looking at, is what we would look to purchase. And that's all I have in terms of public hearing 1, and stand by for any questions you have once you open the public hearing.
Okay, any questions for Assistant Manager Purvis? All right, I'll go ahead and open up public hearing for this item. No one has signed up to speak tonight, so I'll close public hearing. And it's back to you, council, for discussion leading to a possible motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Killingsworth?
Second, Dozier.
Discussion?
Just for clarification, that's to approve the purchase and the budget amendment.
Yes.
Oh, that's us.
Thank you.
Both.
Yeah, thank you. All right, discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. We move now to public hearing number 2, and it's on you also.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. So public hearing 2 is actually for the conveyance of the property that was we just discussed, the 10 acres, and this would be for a specific use. Project Protein is the project coding that the project name that we've been using for this. That's going before the Economic Development Committee, and then also to council for the incentive. It would be the sale of the 10 acres at 2100 Production Drive for $75,210 per acre. That was our appraised value. That's the offer, the purchase that we have. This would be pursuant our general statutes for economic development. And then just so you can recall the project, it is a life sciences project. They are looking to build 30,000, 40,000 square feet, roughly 30 new jobs. And being life sciences, the average salary for these jobs will be higher than will be significant. And then they're also looking to be roughly a $9 million investment. And so that you know the next steps, they are looking to close actually fairly soon, within 60 days. Moving forward upon the approval that we just received for purchase of the property, we'll work through that purchase, and then once we purchase it, then we'll work to close and convey this property to this company for economic development soon thereafter.
Sounds like it's moving forward pretty quickly.
It is. So as a recap, this project actually came to us almost 2 years ago now at this point. I think it was March of 19. So it's been going for a while, and it was hot, cold, which is not unusual for economic development projects. And then this past August, they really stepped in and said they wanted to, I think their parent company changed, and they really started moving forward, looking at some things, changed how they want to move about with the project. And then since the end of October, beginning of November, they've really been moving full steam ahead to get this project done. So they want to close within 60 days, which actually the potential agreement that we have drafted, and they've even approved, depending on how everything goes tonight. It was 90 to 120 days, but was what was given, but they want to close even sooner than that.
good.
That's good
great.
news. Yep.
Awesome. All right, any questions? All right, thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and open public hearing for this item. No one has signed up to speak tonight, so I'll close public hearing and back to council board. Discussion lead to a possible motion.
Motion to approve, Dozier.
Second.
it. Stallings.
All right, any discussion on it?
Development.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we now move to public hearing number 3, annexation number 697. Presenting tonight is Diane King, Director of Planning and Community Development. Thank you, Diane.
So at your last meeting, you set a public hearing for this evening, but there was a miscommunication in terms of the legal notification, and so we need to start over, which the legal notice would put out tomorrow, and this will be heard on December the 15th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So do we need to do anything?
Do we do anything?
Okay,
No, it'd be separate, public hearing, it'll be noted separately, so.
Okay. very
thank
well.
you.
All right. Okay, we move now to public hearing number 4, quasi-judicial public hearing and possible motion regarding a major site plan for Crossroads Ford Truck Center located at 1200 Key Ring Drive. And let me read this statement real quick. The town council normally functions in a legislative capacity. Major site plan hearings are quasi-judicial, which means that council acts essentially as a court of law. The burden is upon the applicant for the major site plan to put on evidence to show that they meet the criteria found in the town's Unified Development Code, the UDO. Anyone opposed to the application must put on evidence of similar kind showing the criteria have not been met. Testimony must be given under oath. All testimony and evidence provided to the council must be competent, material, and substantial. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes, competent evidence does not include opinion testimony of lay witnesses or certain matters. Hearsay evidence will not be admitted. The parties have the right to cross-examine witnesses and to present rebuttal evidence. The town council will apply the criteria contained in the UDO and make its decision based on the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing. The town council will now take up the case of the major site plan for Crossroads Ford Truck Center located at 1200 Key Ring Drive. And if you're here to, as part of this, would you please come up and be sworn in by town clerk? All right. I'll go ahead and open up a public hearing officially on this. And while we're doing that, I want to remind the council members there's a checklist in front of you. Please be sure to check up on the standards as the testimony is given or take notes. And a note of any questions that you may have about a particular standard has been met. All right. We'll now move to identifying all applicant supporters. And are there any opponents here tonight? Anybody opposing? Okay. All right, where's the applicant? Okay, all right. Anybody supporting? All right, very good. All right, we'll now move down to allow each council member and myself an opportunity to describe any communications about this case that have been made with or by them prior to tonight's hearing. Any relational or financial conflict related to this case, or whether they will be able to decide this case impartially and solely on the competent evidence presented at the hearing. So we'll start with Councilmember Stallings. If you would, just provide that, please.
I have had no communications about the case. I have no relational or financial conflicts, and I can be impartial.
Okay, thank you.
I've had no communication, no relational or financial conflicts, and I can judge fairly.
I've had no relational conflicts. I can be impartial, and I have no communications in regard to this particular situation.
All right, thank you. I've also had no communication. I can be any relational financial conflict by any means, and I can be impartial on competent evidence presented at this hearing.
I have had no communications, I have no conflicts, and I can be impartial.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now I have to ask council members if you have viewed this site at all, and if so, describe your observations of the site.
I have not.
No.
I have not viewed the site in relation to this matter.
Okay. I have not viewed the site in relation to this matter as well.
I have not either.
Okay. All right. We now move to open a statement by staff member. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Sarah Van Every. I have over 15 years planning experience and am AICP certified. I will be presenting the staff report and the plan sheets to you as well as into the record. As stated, this is the major site plan for 1200 Keyring Drive, Crossroads Ford Truck Center. So the site is located here just south of 64, east of Salem Street and west of the railroad tracks. We'll zoom in a little closer here to the site. Again, so east of North Salem Street, at the end of Keyring Drive and All-Wheel Drive were all constructed as part of the overall Crossroads Ford development. There to the north is the service center. And so there's an existing pond there on the site. We'll talk about that a little bit later. To the south of the site, you have Thales Academy and the Peak Church. You have the railroad tracks to the east and Villages of Apex on the other side of those. And this site here is a total of, this will be helpful, 10.08 acres. That is the project boundary, what you see in yellow. Again, just highlighting. And the overall site is 18.13 acres. So the, let's see here, get to that later. The existing zoning for the site is LI, light industrial, surrounded by LI. There's part of the other development we saw. The 2045 land use map recommendation is mixed use, high density residential, office employment, commercial services. These are the existing conditions here. So again, you'll see Keyring Drive here. This is the private drive down through here, and then the existing service center to the north. The site to be developed contains an existing waste transfer facility. This land use will be discontinued and existing structures and materials removed as part of future demolition and site prep process. The site contains a stormwater control measure for the existing Salem Street road improvements and Keyring Drive, both of which were constructed as part of the overall Crossroads Ford development. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on August 27th, 2020. The neighborhood meeting report is attached. Bring you to the overall site plan. So what we are looking at here, this is the project boundary here. This is the truck area. This will be their truck center. And we're talking, and I'll let the applicant explain more about the trucks. We're talking more your heavy duty trucks, not your pickup trucks. So the applicant is proposing to construct a truck center totaling 16,006 square feet. So that is all encompassed here in that building. And the project proposes to add 350 parking spaces, which is what triggers the major site plan process. So here we have the proposed grading plan. The proposed major site plan meets all the requirements of the UDO. RCA and preserved buffers will be protected during grading with tree protection fencing. The existing SEM on the site here, which we talked about, will be replaced by a larger SEM to manage stormwater for the proposed development of this site plan, as well as future development of out parcels along the east side of Salem Street. And so that is for area over here. So those are those out parcels here between this drive and Salem Street over here. These guys. This project will extend and utilize existing town water and sewer services. This is the proposed landscape plan. Along the east here, along the railroad, the applicant is providing a 20-foot type A, not required, but is being proposed by the developer. And then as required along here to the south, there is a 15-foot type B buffer between this site and Thales Academy. And then this is all part of the overall parcel, so there is no buffer along here. The design of the building, the overall look is designed to mimic the existing automobile dealership on the other side of Salem Street, and the proposed structure is compliant with Article 9 design standards. So it's primarily, you'll have, there's two different colors of brick here, and then this is glass, mirrored glass. So again, very replicative, complementary of the existing Crossroads Fourth building. There are two community amenities as required. There will be 2 benches here in the hardscaped area adjacent to the building entrance. This site is required to provide 20% RCA. They are providing just over 2 acres, and that is the 20% of the 10 acres for the project boundary. The site is proposing a parking area that will contain the 21 spaces for customers and employees, as well as 329 spaces for vehicle inventory, for a total of 350 parking spaces. All of the parking does comply with the UDO. This plan is not required to go to Parks and Rec, so there's no recommendation from the commission there. As for transportation, access for the development is going to be here off of Keyring Drive. There are no off-site improvements required for this project. With the overall Crossroads 4 development, the TIA that was performed in 2017 is where all of the improvements came. All of those have already been installed. There's nothing at this time. And this building, this square footage, this use, et cetera, was all captured in the initial TIA from 2017. Overall, and lastly, the proposed major site plan is in compliance with the standards of the UDO. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well.
Any questions?
Can you explain a little more detail why the parking space addition triggered this kind of review?
It is, if it is over 100 parking spaces, then it becomes a major site plan. And then we must present that before you as a
And the idea behind that is that it increases like the impervious area and environmental impacts, or kind of visual impacts?
I'm not sure the history of why the 100 parking spaces was set.
I believe it was a church that added 100 or more spaces, and the council wanted to have seen it, and they didn't get to see it.
Okay.
That's just what the standard is in the ordinance. It could be changed.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there is, my understanding is that there's enough impervious surface here that we have to expand this stormwater control measure?
The stormwater that they'll be enlarging is to account for future development here. This project is only at 40% impervious surface, and the requirement is no more than 70%. So they are well below the threshold.
Okay.
But as far as the technical engineering questions, I will, for the stormwater, I will let the engineer address those.
I had a question about traffic flow and how this could help maybe traffic flow with Thales, and I don't know if you can answer that or if it's better for the applicant to answer, but I'm curious about how the traffic flow will be impacted by this.
I
Or will it?
I don't think that this is going to be a high-traffic site. I can let the applicant answer that more, but it's not anticipated that this would be a high-traffic use. Just because it's more of a specialty client. You're not, you know, it's not the general public coming to in and out to shop, as with the other dealership.
One of the concerns that we've been talking about recently is the amount of traffic that Thales is putting onto Salem, onto North Salem. And maybe encouraging more use of these roads to the red light may help reduce some of that traffic that's staying on North Salem. So I think is that what you were referring to?
Right, that's really what I was getting at.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to call the applicant, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be before you in person. It's my first public hearing in person since March, so it's good to see all of you. My name is Leanne Brown. I'm an attorney. Much of my practice is devoted to zoning, planning, and land use. As all of you know, it is best practice in a quasi-judicial hearing for an applicant to have an attorney present, and that's why I'm here. However, I'm not the person you need to really hear from, so without further ado, I'm going to call on Bill Daniel. Bill Daniel is a principal with William Daniel Associates. He's the engineer on this project, and he will be able to share with you detail about the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name's Bill Daniel with William G. Daniel and Associates. I'm a civil engineer, licensed professional engineer with over 40 years of practice in my company, and that's kind of embarrassing almost. And prior to that, 8 years as a town engineer for the town of Cary. So it really gets to adding up. I think 50 is coming up real soon when I stand up here as talking about qualifications. Our specialty, the specialty of our company, is site design and infrastructure engineering. And we have designed this site as we have designed the site across the street and the infrastructure that serves both. I'll be discussing a few of the factors or a few of the features of this plan and try to address some of the items that you picked up on early in the discussion here. And then I will address the findings that you need to have satisfied. So I hope to provide information that allows you to vote affirmatively on that. First off, I reviewed the staff report, and rather than duplicate everything that's in there, I do want to go on record as saying what is in the staff report is accurate. The facts stated there come straight from the site plan. There is nothing stated in that staff report that is inconsistent with the site plan, and so the information presented, if you read the staff report, that is factual, and I can certify that it is factual. And I can also state that I agree with the conclusions of complying with those provisions of the ordinance. There were a few things that were specifically mentioned. One was the nature of the business. This is a truck center, and the main clientele for this use is companies. It's corporate clients for primarily for trucks, fleets. I mean, there are pickups, there are mid-sized trucks, small trucks, and as I say, a lot of fleet. That will be sales, that'll be leasing, and it's very complementary to the dealership across the street, although a different direction because of its corporate bent. The stormwater was specifically mentioned. There is currently a small surface stormwater control measure, a small pond, on this site. It was constructed specifically, it was going to be temporary. It had to be built as if it were permanent, but it was constructed with full knowledge that it would be temporary. And the reason we had to construct that is because the drainage from the improvements on Salem Street and Key Ring Drive could not feed by gravity to the large existing SCM on the other side, on the west side of Salem Street. So we had to build this small SCM on the east side to treat that stormwater discharge until such time as this site were planned. And this site could not be planned as long as the site was occupied by the Shotwell transfer facility, which, if you're all familiar with that, it's, trash comes in there and then they load it and make a lot of noise in the process of doing that, and a lot of dust and that sort of thing. We're glad that use is being terminated now. But until that use were terminated, we could not plan this site, and therefore we had to build that temporary facility so that we could comply with all the town's regulations while we were denied use of that site because of the lease. Now that that lease has been terminated, we have designed this site and proposed it, and it's here before you as a major site plan. It's 16,006 square feet of building itself, and as Sarah said, 350 total parking spaces, 21 of which are required by code, the remainder being inventory parking. And there was mention made about traffic and how this would impact Thales. I really like to talk about that issue because that's one of the things that I think worked out so well on this overall project. The developer worked with Thales Academy. It was a cooperative arrangement. Thales provided permission for Crossroads to construct improvements, a roadway connection and a roundabout on the Thales property, and Thales actually participated financially to some extent in that as well. And that roundabout provides direct access, that connection via the roundabout provides direct access to the traffic signal. And that traffic signal, as you know, is also a signalized intersection that for all-wheel drive, which will eventually connect to the west and be, I think, a very important link in the town's thoroughfare system, or roadway system rather. The access from that signalized intersection to Thales is probably not fully baked into the patterns yet. But once it becomes obvious the benefits of accessing that traffic signal, it will be a huge benefit to the traffic patterns with the school. In fact, I don't know what the long-range plans are, but I would not be surprised, this is more Russell's thing than ours, but I would not be surprised that there'll be a change in the access drive from Salem Street to access the school, because truthfully, there is very little reason for that access on Salem Street when you have the signal. So I think it'll just naturally become more and more the dominant movement to access the traffic signal. But if for some reason a problem develops or persists, then there could be some modifications. But I think it's a huge benefit to the area and to the town. As far as the individual findings, those items that we need to satisfy, one of those, I'd just like to go through the list and make a few points about that, and I would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions or expound on anything if you have questions. But the compatibility, I think this was fairly well addressed, but when you look at what is around the site, first off, I think the compatibility among this proposed use and all the surrounding uses are going to be greatly enhanced by the discontinuation of that use that's there now, which is it's an objectionable use, but it is terminating, and now there'll be the truck center as presented on the plans before you. To the north, you have the I don't even know what to call it really, but it's the reconditioning center, which is the existing building to the north. That is a Crossroads facility. And that's a seamless use really between that use and this use. They are seamless. It'll look like the same development, in fact, with two buildings. To the east, there's the railroad track, and there's no buffer required in the code, but we've proposed a type A buffer, and that's being landscaped, and that will enhance the buffering between this site and the opposite side of the road. But that railroad creates a very real physical separation at any rate. But this way, when people from the east side look across the street, they will see the vegetation that we're placing within that buffer, that 20-foot type A buffer. To the south is Thales Academy, which I mentioned, and there we have a buffer as well, but the real benefit there is that interconnection with the roadways. And by the way, the road that is served, the road that serves this, which is Keyring Drive, those of you that remember the previous zoning, all those lots along Salem Street are zoned planned commercial conditional use. And one of the conditions associated with those is there's a restriction of access. You can't access those lots from Salem Street. They're in a lifetime right now. They'll remain residential for the foreseeable future. But ultimately, when they are developed, they cannot access Salem Street. They have to access through Keyring Drive. So that infrastructure, having that in place now and the signal in place means, well, it sets the stage for very orderly development there and should be a real asset to the town. So the compatibility, we feel that and of course directly across Salem Street is the Ford dealership, and the elements of the Ford dealership have been incorporated into the design of this building, and I think the compatibility has been established. The second item is zoning district supplemental standards, and that's the standards that relate to this development really just require that the parking and display areas be paved, and obviously, as stated in the staff report and as shown on the plan, that is the case. So that condition is met. The site development standards of Article 8 address resource conservation areas, protection of vegetation within buffers, establishment of landscape perimeter buffers, geometric and dimensional layout of parking areas and aisles, provision of the required number of parking spaces, screening of service areas, intensity of exterior lighting, signage placement design, and design of on-site landscaping and establishment of tree islands to ensure that as those trees mature, the parking lots are shaded as per the UDO requirements. As proposed in the initial plan that was submitted and then enhanced through responses to the staff's review of the plan, we are quite confident that the plan meets all provisions of Article 8. Next item deals with protection of steep slopes, and the grading plan for this development has been prepared in such a way that there are no slopes 3 to 1 or greater. Nothing steeper than 3 to 1 at any rate. So that is not an issue. No right-of-way has been dedicated or is dedicated on the project because it's already been dedicated. The traffic study that was done, and in fact, a copy of that traffic study is in the packet that staff provided to you. And that did involve right-of-way dedication, and it did involve off-site improvements, even on the north side of 64. And signalization modifications there as well. All of that has been done. The right-of-way has been acquired, dedicated, recorded, done deal. So all of the roadway improvements are existing. All the walks that you see on this plan are private walks. I mean, they'll be maintained privately. There's no publicly maintained facilities included on the plan anywhere except water and sewer. And water and sewer on the site, and those are again installed directly by the developer, fully at developer expense. The next item is other relevant standards of the ordinance, and this site plan complies with all applicable standards of the ordinance, including handicap accessibility, provision of parking, accommodation of vehicular movements, and access for fire and life safety services, and conformity to all landscaping and buffering requirements. The next item is applicable standards of Article 7, and Article 7 really is not applicable because we're not proposing a subdivision and we're not proposing any residential units. So that is just inapplicable to the project. Impact on public facilities. As I say, we're not proposing any residential units, so the demands that are attributable to population and addition of resident population is really non-existent for this project. So the impact on parks, recreation facilities, EMS facilities, and community programs serving the town's residents will be largely unimpacted by the proposed development. At the same time, I'm sure some residents, many of the people that work there will be residents here, but we're not proposing residential units or the addition of residential lots. Utility services and traffic generation are very low for this use. It's just not it's not a big water user. It's not a big generator of wastewater, and it generates very low volume per square footage of the building. So it's a very good and low impact use related to utilities and traffic. The overall impact, because of the activity of customers, has already been taken into account and mitigated through construction, through design and construction of the roadway improvements on Salem Street, the off-site improvements north of 64, the construction of all-wheel drive, and all of that has been accomplished and is in place right now and is being used. And for those reasons, we feel there is no appreciable impact on public utilities. If there are any issues that I can address, I would be glad to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Yeah, I just had a couple of things that were mentioned at the neighborhood meeting. So a question was related to the fencing around the pond, that perhaps people might want to walk around, and I think your response was that it was restricted because it was private property. So is that correct, that people wouldn't be able to do that? Just wanted to make sure that that was the case.
That is correct. That pond and the Booth residence
Yes.
along Salem Street, that residence and that pond are part of a lifetime estate that was one of the conditions of the purchase of the property. And so that is exclusively for the use, the existing pond. That's exclusively for the use of the Booths.
Okay, understood, thank you. And then there was a question related to the stand of trees that that this gentleman could see from the tracks, and would they remain? So I guess my question for you is to please allow all the trees that can remain to do so on this property, and is that something that you can be sure to do in that section where especially where he's speaking of?
Well, when I responded to him, and that response is in the meeting, we are keeping trees within the buffers and within the riparian buffers. Those trees, and I wanted to make it clear, I didn't want to be misleading at all. So I was telling him that the trees that I think he was specifically talking about are probably those in the field. And those will have to be removed because that's where the proposed FCM is. But there are trees to the north of that in the riparian buffer, and any trees in the perimeter buffer. Those are being retained, and any trees around that existing pond, they're there. But I just wanted to make it clear that those in the proposed pond area, those are being removed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I thank you for the buffer that you are going to be putting along the tracks. Because preserving trees and planting trees and vegetation is very important to our residents.
Sure.
And so thank you for that. And residents are also concerned about light pollution. Can you speak to how that would be managed as best you can on this site?
I can to some extent, in that it will definitely conform to the town's regulations. The poles are 28 feet high, and they will be cut-off fixtures, and there will be an as-built and a certification of the light levels at the time. That's not specific to this project. That's just the way of doing business in Apex, because I know we've had to go through that before. So the regulations are very very tight regarding that. But the pole heights are 28 feet, cutoff fixtures, and the lighting levels, I think where they were adjusted through the review process, because there were a couple of places where they were higher than, and staff pointed out that they needed to be lowered. And so the second version of the lighting plan ensured that no spot was greater than was specified in the ordinance.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a housekeeping matter, I would ask that you receive into your official evidence the materials that were provided to you in your report, as well as the PowerPoint materials you've seen tonight, and that you receive Mr. Daniels' testimony as an expert in his field of engineering. And unless you have other questions of us, that's the evidence we wanted to present to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Accepted evidence for the applicant. Any other information from staff?
No.
I actually just have one question out of curiosity. With the community amenities, I noticed 2 benches, I think, will meet that criteria. What were some other options that could have been considered for that?
It is up to the applicant to propose amenities. They can include benches, decorative bike racks, large-scale planters. There can be some sort of additional landscape, hardscape type of things. Trying trying to think of what else. Typically, we see a lot of benches and decorative bike racks are probably what we tend to see the most. There are some suggestions in the UDO, but the applicant certainly can propose those amenities for staff consideration.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, at this time, no further from staff. You're good?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll go ahead and ask council members to review your checklist and make sure that if you have any questions about testimony related to a particular standard, this is time for you to ask questions of the applicant and staff at this time. Councilmember Stallings, do you have any questions? Any questions from anyone? Okay. All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and close public hearing for this item and move it back to council to deliberate on the facts of UDO standards, make sure they do apply, and as they relate to the issue of approving with conditions or denying the major site plan presented tonight.
Motion to approve, Gant?
Okay.
Second, Killingsworth.
All right. Discussion. Okay, I'm hearing none. No discussion. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. All right, we now move to presentation number 2, an update provided by our town manager, Mr. Drew Havens.
Good evening. This is an exciting new addition to your agenda. And the council member that suggested it when we were meeting is not here tonight to enjoy it, but hopefully he'll watch it. Watch it on YouTube. I think, Mary, you said to keep my comments to about 30 minutes. Is that?
45.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
all right. So what I was asked to do for the benefit of the public that's watching is provide an update on some of the projects and some of the other happenings around town. The public's not aware, but you all get an update from me pretty much every day on different topics. And this is just a good opportunity for me to share some of the same information that you get in those updates, but so people are aware of what's happening. So I want to hit on a few of the projects that are happening right now. We have about $70 million worth of large capital projects under construction right now, and that's in just 3 projects. So our senior center, electric operations center, and Pleasant Park. All 3 of those, believe it or not, for government projects are on schedule. They've had a little bit of slippage here and there because of weather, but that's normal to be built into a contract. The senior center, as you can see right now, the brick is starting to go on the outside of that building. Interior work is progressing, HVAC and other mechanical systems. The interior stairs have been put in. The permanent or the final roof will get put on shortly. It's due to move in April of 2021, so that is on schedule. So be prepared for the ribbon cutting. Hopefully we won't be limited to 10 people at that time, so we can actually get in that building and enjoy it. Most significant right now to the public is the connector road between Town Hall and the community center is closed this week. They're doing some very deep stormwater infrastructure under that roadway, so that'll be closed for the week, and it should be open shortly. Pleasant Park, if you haven't been out there, a lot of grading, so a lot of dirt's been moved. That site, you know, when you look at it from an aerial, looks like it's just a big open flat area. No, not so. So there's been a lot of cut and fill happening.
A lot of segmental block retaining walls have been built. That's still looking to be on schedule for partial occupancy in fall of 2021. So hopefully we'll be able to start putting that land to beneficial use in the fall of next year. Electric operations facility on Milano Drive is going along very well. Brick veneer is going on. Paving is happening when we can because of weather. This time of year, it's hit or miss for paving. As we start to get a little colder, the asphalt plants will shut down because you can't apply asphalt at a kind of below a certain temperature. I'm not an engineer, but there are some in the room, so I won't even throw out a number because they'll correct me right away. But everything there is going along very well. Move-in for that building is March of 2021. So March for the electric operations facility, April for the senior center. So you're going to have 2 ribbon cuttings back to back, really. Greenway projects. So the 2 major Greenway projects, we have Beaver Creek and Greenway and Middle Creek Greenway. The Beaver Creek Greenway is adding about 1.6 miles of Greenway to our network, and that's connecting Kelly Road Park to the Nature Park. That's still in planning and design. We anticipate that construction will begin in the spring of 2021, so this coming spring. We do have $1 million worth of federal funding that has been awarded to help with that project. So kudos to the staff for applying for that and getting those funds. Middle Creek Greenway, we found out that we got a little over $1.5 million in county grant funding for that Greenway project. Again, kudos to our staff for doing that. About 1.2 miles of Greenway in total to connect really from Sunset Lake Road essentially to Lufkin Road Middle School. So it'll connect that whole basin, and we'll connect then our Greenway system to that of Holly Springs. So it's a fairly significant project. A portion of that, what's phase 2, is nearly complete, and that is from Reunion Point to Stray White. You would think that phase 1 would come before phase 2, but DOT kind of got in the way of phase 1 with their 540 project. So staff has been doing a lot of coordination to try to get that crossing of 540 ironed out before we can get our Greenway built. But that project also is moving along according to plan. Let's see. The Beaver Creek Greenway West, so along Olive Chapel Road between Richardson and the American Tobacco Trail, as you're driving down Olive Chapel Road, there's some gaps in the side path. There's a project that's underway to fill in those gaps. Staff is working with the Army Corps of Engineers, DOT, North Carolina Wildlife, and Wake County to secure all the necessary easements and permissions to make that happen. So I'll have more information as far as the timing of that project when we actually have the timeline for it, but I just want to let you know that that is in progress, and that's something I know that's of interest to people that live in the neighborhoods out in that area. We have 2 signal projects that we're working on, Beaver Creek Commons Drive and Zeno Road. I think everybody is aware of that intersection that is currently being designed, and we're looking at probably August of 2022 before that's complete. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a very complex design. It requires coordination with the signal on 55, coordination with property owners, but Russell and his team are working to get that done. Where we are seeing some fairly significant delay is in NCDOT review. That's just taking some time. The other signal project is the Tingen and South Salem Street signal. If everything goes according to plan, it's going to go according to plan. Russell says it's going to go according to plan. That signal should be operational by July of next year. So the design has been approved. They're working on easements and encroachments. And then they'll move in early spring to get into bidding and get that signal installed. So by the next school year, when there's no more COVID and the kids are back in school, we should have a signal up and running. couple other things to point out. You approved tonight a call for a public hearing for our next meeting on the 15th. That's the pre-budget public hearing. Encourage people that have suggestions, recommendations for items for the fiscal 22 budget to come and speak at that hearing. That's the first really point of public input for the fiscal 22 budget. There's also an email address that we'll continue to publish, and that's annual.budget@apexnc.org. And that's monitored by Amanda Grogan and the budget team. So if people have suggestions, they can send them there. How am I doing on my 30 minutes, Mayor? We're doing okay? All right. Haven't lost you yet, right? Just a few more things. And if people are paying attention, I don't know if they pay attention to little things like this, but you may have noticed that in front of our fire stations, our firefighters have painted fire hydrants orange. It's kind of a weird color for fire hydrants. That is really to show support to one of our firefighters who was battling leukemia. So there's his brothers and sisters in the fire department went out and painted the fire hydrants orange, and have been doing a lot of other things to support this firefighter and his family through the time that he's going through. And certainly would covet the thoughts and prayers of all the employees and all the citizens in town too. What else? Oh, so our electric team has coordinated with Parks, and we're going to be adding some lighting to basketball courts and volleyball courts in the nature park and in the community park. So now that council has allowed the parks to stay open later so people can be outside, social distance recreation, we're adding those lights. Eric Newman and his team did the light specification working with John Brown and their folks, and they're going to get them installed very shortly. Our economic development team, and I've reported this to council, we graduated our 4th cohort from the Launch Apex program. 14 Apex entrepreneurs, business owners graduated in this cohort. This is a business training, mentoring, and networking course. It's put on by a partnership with Wake Tech, the Apex Chamber of Commerce, and the Apex Sunrise Rotary and Apex Rotary Clubs. It's a very successful program. This one was done all virtually, and from what we understand, the class still was very engaged in the program and very engaged with each other, so it was definitely a success. Economic Development asked me to please remind everybody that listens, shop local, shop small. Our local small businesses need our support during the holiday, especially during these holiday times. So for those of you that are listening, please shop local, shop small. There's a lot going on, a lot of information on our website. The finance team reported that the work on the audit is done. Normally the audit's supposed to be done by the end of October. LGC extended the deadlines because of COVID. We were seeing, in a lot of cities around, we're seeing delays in getting invoices in. And a lot of that was because the places that we get goods and services, they don't have the staff in their offices all the time to produce the invoices. So LGC gave grace on that, so we're still going to meet our deadline. Vance did report there were no issues in the audit. Vance and Keith Joyce, who's the auditor, will come here and make a presentation. I won't steal their thunder other than to say we ended up the year very well in all 3 of the major funds. Some internal stuff. So our human resources team, working with a consultant, this week will wrap up diversity and inclusion training for all of our employees. So all 515 employees were required to take a 3-hour diversity and inclusion workshop provided by Gracie Johnson Lopez, who you all know. So she and her team and they had to do it all virtually, obviously, but the feedback we've gotten from the staff has been generally very positive about that. That follows a 2-day D&I training session that all of our department directors attended. Yeah, I think that's it. Other than, I want to take an opportunity, now that I have the microphone and the mayor hasn't cut me off yet, to brag a little bit about your staff. You know, in March, we were all thrown a curveball. And to say they hit it out of the park would understate it. Been very impressed that everybody, to continue that metaphor, really has kept their eye on the ball. The business of the town has continued without interruption. COVID has been, it's been an annoyance in a lot of ways. It's been an inconvenience as far as changing our operations. We've made a lot of adjustments to try to protect the health of our employees and the citizens that we interact with, but just the speed at which everybody adjusted. We closed this building, as you all know, for a month, and we've been open ever since. In that month, our facilities team came in and made the adjustments and modifications necessary, again, to protect the health of our people. But other than that, we really haven't missed a beat as far as the regular business of the community. Yes, we've had to make adjustments in some of the services that we offer, and we are following, to the best of our ability, all of the public health guidelines to do that. It's not me doing it, it's not Marty, it's not Sean, it's every one of the 515 women and men that come here every day to work. Virtually without complaint, when we say, you got to wear a mask. You know, yes, you have to come to work and somebody else maybe is working from home. But again, can't overemphasize the quality of the people that you have serving this community. I've been impressed since I've been here. I'm even more impressed now, and I hope you are as well.
I'm going to cut you off right now.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. No, because I got to do this because I believe in giving honor to whom honor is due. So I would like to ask my council colleagues to join me in a standing ovation for our town staff.
Yes,
for all the work
absolutely.
they've done.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll be sure, Marty, be sure that the staff knows that too. Thank you. That's all I had for this update. And if you have any questions, Russell's here to answer them.
Any questions for Manager Drew?
Thank you. You knocked it out of the park too.
All right,
We
thank you.
appreciate that.
That was awesome. All right. Hey, there's no further business. All right. Anything else? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you. I think I made it work. I had 8 o'clock.
Okay, so
No, it's over. You can't go over. You went over.
What?
Yeah, it's like the, it's without going over.
Audra had 740, Cheryl had 750, so I guess she would really be the winner.
Yeah.
Because you had 747.
I'll share my honor with you.
No, I think you gotta be just above the. Oh, you're saying you can go over?
You can't go over, yeah, so.
Okay, that's the rule. It's a bad policy. The clock after a certain while.
Yeah, we should have paid you, Drew. We should have paid you to like keep it on.
And I had control of the seat. I could have really asked.
Yeah, you've been like, excuse me. Yeah. You brought us over. I mean, we should have put that thing on. How come we didn't put that thing on? Okay. The 3 minutes.